Good morning, everyone. Today at the Finance Committee, Mark and his brother Craig Kielburger will both be testifying about We Charity Foundation's We Charity, the $900 million, or was it $500 million contract they got, and all of the other stuff. And there's a lot going on in this situation. Vivian Cruz found this old interview with Craig Kielburger talking about millennial engagement after going through We programs. I'd love to see their accounting on how they know that 79% of We alumni voted. I'd love to see it. But this is him bragging about that. So his preoccupation with the voting habits of We alumni is as strange as his preoccupation with owning Queen Street real estate. Okay, here he is, 24 seconds, worth the watch.
Raise a generation of kids who are engaged. Studies show 80% keep volunteering. After leaving the program, 83% keep giving to charity. 79% voted in the last national election.
This is 79% of children who've been a part of We, or
Absolutely.
Just children who have been a part of the program?
Oh, no, who have been part of our program here. So under the age of 30, between that coveted, millennial delegation that's so tough to get to vote, then we...
So they'd have 4 years to cultivate that audience, right? I've actually worked during We days, and I think I've said that before. And so the testimony today should be very interesting. It should be really interesting to watch. Here's Dr. Gil Layton, and she says, the Liberals must be scared to death about what's going to come out in the We scandal. Sean Fraser MP has so far tried to limit witness times, appearances, and the inquiry itself. So that's one Liberal trying to limit all of this as much as possible. Here is a story in 3 tweets. Breaking Global News says, and this is 19 hours ago, Trudeu will testify Thursday about his government's decision to get the We organization to run a summer student volunteer program. So that's one. Happening now, Liberal MP, this is Peter, and I'm not going to try his last name, although I should probably, Fragistos? I should be able to say it, but I'm not saying it correctly at all. Sorry, Peter. This MP is trying once again to make sure the Commons Finance Committee stops studying what happened with the We contract. And then the third tweet is, and he actually responds, but I'm not going to read it right now, but if you want to read it, link it in the description. Here's Pierre Poilievre. He says, Liberal MPs shut down the meeting tonight right before we could vote on having the Prime Minister testify for 3 hours instead of 1 hour. He wants to give a speech and sneak out the door. I wonder why. So currently, the Thursday... testimony will only be an hour. Is that enough time to really get Justin Trudeau on the hot seat? I feel like if there's only an hour, how many Liberal MPs get questions? And what's the maximum amount of time they can take to ask a question? So they are going to game this as much as possible for Trudeau to say all of his talking points and answer 0 questions. And we've seen this in the House of Commons, right? During question period, if you ask, what color is the sky? Justin Trudeau will stand up and say, the sky is a wonderful thing that everybody experiences in their own way. And then moving on, right? Like he's not going to answer the question. And while sounding like he's trying to answer the question, or while sounding like he's saying something in the ballpark of answering the question, but he's not answering the question regardless of that. And not just Justin Trudeau gets to do stuff like this. Here's the Kielburger brothers and Holly Doan. She's the person behind Minding Ottawa, the Blacklocks reporter. She says MPs threatened Kielburgers with subpoena after founders of We Charity told Finance Committee they could only spare an hour for questioning. They are going to have to testify for 4 hours at least. So wow, that's going to be interesting, and you can see this thread if you're interested. Link is in the description. And how to watch it, here's the link. Okay, so link is in the description if you want to watch it today at 1 o'clock. I usually wait until after it's done, and then I can watch it in double time. So it just cuts out all the unnecessary thought processes. That's why I do that. Here's CI's Charity Intelligence Canada's top 10 questions for Mark and Craig Kielburger. I'm not going to go through these, but these are interesting questions. Some of the best are well, they're all really good. They're all very poignant questions. Liberal appointed senator cites Justin Trudeau for We Charity ethical failings, demands cabinet come clean. Conflict of interest is glaring. Yeah. Yep, that's another Blacklocks. And here is Dan Albus. He says, while the Toronto Star is reporting We Charity started work on Justin Trudeau's student grant program weeks before cabinet approval on May 5th, CBC is reporting, notwithstanding the date it was signed, the agreement says it took effect May 5th. To recap, We starts work on May 5th. Trudeau Liberal cabinet doesn't meet to decide until May 22nd. Sole sourced agreement to We is signed June 23rd. Agreement is backdated to May 5th. $33 million is front-loaded to We Need Answers. That's Dan Albus, and he's MP for Central Okanagan. And there's two other names in that riding that I'm not going to attempt because, well, I'm not going to be able to say them right. And CBC is reporting, and the We Charity is the scandal that keeps on giving. I could do an entire video on just the scandal and the many different layers around it. So I'm just giving you a taste. All the links are in the description. Check them out if you're interested. CBC is reporting agreement between We and federal government set aside only $500 million for student grants. $500 million. Here's Vasikopoulos and a tweet. She says, Youth Minister Barty Shager confirms what contribution agreement says. Deal with We was for a $500 million program, not $912 million. If program costs had gone above $500 million, quote, I'd be leaning on the public service to have those negotiations and see what would be needed. And here's the proof that it was definitely a $912 million contract as recently as July 22nd. Today is the 28th. So, that's interesting. So we're going to get into this now. Documents shared with the Commons Finance Committee today suggest that although the Canada Student Service Grant Program, CSSG, was allocated a $900 million budget, $912 million actually, officials had drawn up a plan with the We Charity Foundation to spend only a portion of that amount. According to the text of the contribution agreement signed June 23rd between Youth Minister Barty Shager's office and the We Charity Foundation, up to $500 million could have paid out in the form of grants to students across 3 cohorts of potential volunteers, while $43.53 million would have been allocated to the We Charity Foundation for administering the program. Wasn't it $19.5 million? Then it ballooned, yeah. Front loading $33 million. And convenient. Isn't this exactly the price of the loans that they had? Like what they had to repay? Anyway, it was $8 million they had to repay, but isn't this the $43 million is the total value of the real estate they owned? Okay, that's it. Back to this. Up to $8.75 million of the $43.5 million was eligible to be shared among the partnering charities and nonprofit organizations that supervise the volunteers. Originally, the government disclosed only that $5 million was available to those partnering nonprofits, but the document provided to the committee show an additional $3.75 million was available, depending on how many students were placed. On July 3rd, operational responsibility for the volunteer grant scheme was turned over to Employment and Social Development Canada officials after We Charity announced it was pulling out of its partnership to administer the program. This decision, which was first announced by the We organization, was described by Shager's office that day as mutual. Now, my question is, what happens to this? There's $30 million was paid to We. Here's Vivian Cruz again. She says $30 million was paid to We within a week of contract signing, and now has to be paid back. Very strange. This is a Globe and Mail article. Here's the Standard talking about. Sorry, I thought this was that article. Hold on. Okay, well, I canceled my Globe and Mail subscription, and so I don't actually have access to this right now. So link is in the description. Somebody's saying right here that. He says from my long experience in nonprofit, I would say this is normal. They would need funds for the program. I would ask you to speak to a variety of nonprofits to see if it's unusual to receive the administration fees with program announcements and commencement. And Vivian Cruz says, I worked in the charitable sector for many years. A $30 million administration fee up front is not the norm. And yeah, I worked in nonprofit as well. We didn't usually see that, but I wasn't in the fundraising arm. Here's another article about the work starting early. I'm not going to go through this one. Link is in the description. We Charities. This is another We Charity scandal. We Charities plan to pay teachers to recruit students for grant program posed ethical dilemma for some. It wouldn't for the Prime Minister, but, for some teachers. Okay. According to the ATA's executive secretary and the CEO Dennis Thobald, the $12,000 proposition to teachers may expose them to a complaint of unprofessional conduct. A teacher who receives payment from a charity or government or a private sector enterprise as an incentive to recruit students with whom they are otherwise personally engaged or responsible for as a teacher may place themselves at risk of such a complaint, Theobald said in a statement to the National Post. There's a similar language in many other codes. The Manitoba Teachers Code says that each one of its members recognizes that a privileged relationship with students exists and refrain from exploiting that relationship for material, ideological, and other advantage. So yeah, there's problems with this, and it's written directly into procedures for dealing with kids in in situations where you hold power over them, right? Like you shouldn't be recruiting them for outside things, regardless of your political leanings. And it even explicitly underlines that. Don't do it for ideological reasons. Don't do that. And jobs are not ideological reasons, but we is certainly not void of ideological slant. Okay, feds considered other groups before we deal, but most were never told about the program. Great. We considered tons of people. We considered Elon Musk, and we considered everybody we thought of. Everybody was considered. Lots of groups. Back to those. New documents indicate the public service considered at least 20 organizations to work on the Canada Student Service Grant, CSSG, including the United Way and Canada Red Cross, before concluding that We Charity was the best fit. However, many of these organizations say they were never actually contacted about the program itself. The new documents, which were given to the House of Commons Finance Committee on Monday, explain that public servants with Employment and Social Development Canada made calls to multiple organizations in mid-April, including the Boys and Girls Club of Canada and the YMCA and 4-H Canada. None of them were chosen, and most of them weren't picked. And here's Rachel Gilmore, and she says, at no point did the government contact YMCA Canada about delivering that program. Peter Dinsdale, CEO of YMCA Canada, said. He added that his organization absolutely would have been capable of delivering the grant, though COVID-19 presents challenges. YMCA was on the Fed's list, and this is Rachel Gilmore again. She says, big update to this story. New documents indicate the public service considered 20 organizations to work on the Canada Student Service Grant. However, many of these organizations say they were never actually contacted about the program itself. So while they're saying one thing, their actions are doing another. Here's a quick one before we move into COVID-19. And we're on 11 minutes. Wow, I thought I was way longer than that. Weird. Okay, so here's Toronto Pearson. Starting in July 30th, passengers departing Toronto Pearson will have their temperatures taken by these guys. Hold on. CATSA. Yeah. And as they approach the security checkpoint as part of a new screening regulations from Transport Canada. So Transport Canada. Talk about too late. Talk about not exactly the right thing to be doing now. This is the kind of stuff that you see at the beginning of a pandemic. Why are we screening people leaving Canada? Will they be prevented from leaving Canada if they have a temperature? What's the goal here? Moving into more hard COVID-19 stuff. Yesterday, the American Doctors Association, one of those, held a press conference in Washington, D.C., and it was a long press conference. It was like a 45-minute press conference with doctors, a bunch of them, all backed up by their staffs, saying hydroxychloroquine works, and it was scrubbed. So this is the Periscope of the original broadcast that I shared yesterday. Gone. They backed it up on what's this? BitChute. And here is an important part before we get into one other quick story. The Ontario Liberals unveil $3.2 billion plan for reopening schools safely. Here we go.
The barrier, and I hate to say this, but the barrier to getting our kids back in school is not going to be the science. It's going to be the national unions, the teachers union, the National Education Association, other groups who are going to demand money. And listen, I think that it's fine to give people money for PPE and different things in the classroom, but some of their demands are really ridiculous. They're talking about, where I'm from in California, the UTLA, which is the United Teachers of Los Angeles, is demanding that we defund the police. What does that have to do with education? They're demanding that they stop or they shut all private charter schools, privately funded charter schools. These are the schools that are actually getting the kids educated.
So that's California, that's not Canada, but I wanted to give you an example. Unions and other people are using COVID-19 as leverage to get what they want. Now, I'm not going to go through this budget right now and tell you if I think that there's lots of waste. That wasn't the point. The point is, if they're spending this money on PPE and keeping people safe, maybe it's worth it. And there is an in-depth accounting of the money. Now I'm going to show you because I've said that. So here it is, the in-depth accounting of the money. Lots of it, $1.3 billion to hire 15,000 more elementary teachers. Where are we going to get those teachers? In 2017, there was a mandate from the BC government saying you had to hire all these teachers, blah, 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 blah. You can't find the teachers to fill the positions, right? And there are teachers out there who are supply teachers for a reason. They don't have a classroom of their own for a reason. These people exist. It's very interesting what's going on. Like the idea that mandating to hire will solve a problem like insufficient teachers is just crazy. It's just very, very funny. Where are you going to get these 2,000 more teachers, right? 10,000 more caretakers. Maybe you can hire that. 14,000 new classrooms in community centers, campuses, arenas. I don't know that we need this. This was the written transcript of the same press conference I showed on BitChute there. And here's the last story for today, the Nova Scotia mass shooting. Here's the Cumberland Colchester MP not consulted about independent review of Nova Scotia mass killing decision. They're not interested really in informing the public. They're just interested in pushing this down the road. The Member of Parliament for Cumberland Colchester said she wasn't consulted by the federal or provincial governments before last week's announcement of an independent review of April's mass shooting, despite submitting multiple requests for a public inquiry. Lenora Zan, the MP for Cumberland Colchester, said Monday that she was upset that she was not consulted since she had been requesting a public inquiry since May. From the very beginning, my constituents and I have been saying that we would like a public inquiry into what has now become known as the largest mass shooting in Canadian history, Zan said. People are disappointed. Most of the families of the victims live here, and they are really actually outraged, and they're demanding a public inquiry. Families of victims, women's groups, legal experts, and Canadian senators have been calling for an inquiry, but on July 23rd, the provincial and federal governments announced an independent review consisting of a 3-person panel. Yeah, and here's a further article National Post is reporting. Protesters gathered at 2 Nova Scotia locations Monday as family members of mass shooting victims vowed to maintain pressure on Ottawa and the province to hold a full public inquiry into the rampage. About 100 people gathered in Bridgewater, Nova Scotia for a march to the office of the province's Justice Minister, while a similar number gathered for a rally organized by a women's centre and a feminist group at Halifax Park. The protests followed last week's announcement by the provincial and federal governments of an independent review, which has been criticized by relatives of the 22 victims as lacking transparency and legal heft. Yeah, so it's... and I don't think that they're going to get justice, and that's the unfortunate part of this. Like, they're saying that the panel that they've got, the 3-person panel, which can't put people under oath, and I don't know if it even can compel witnesses to come, like if it can say, no, you have to come and talk to us, will be August. So like, we're not going to get answers anytime soon. There's not going to be any answers, despite the fact that there are very, very many questions. And it's a toothless inquiry, right? Like it's got nothing backing it up. So, man, this is going to be interesting because we've got federal inquiries happening at the federal level about mass ethical scandals and misspending of hundreds of millions of dollars. We've got rogue RCMP. We've got a guy with a replica car who seems to be being paid through the same system as informants to the RCMP, who had guns and outstanding legal history that was ignored, drug smuggling and gun smuggling, and people don't care. And I mean, people do care. People care, including people who should matter. MPs, people are putting pressure on, including senators, people care. But the people in charge, the 6 or 10 people in charge of the cabinet and the Liberals arena, and this is a federal jurisdiction because nobody wants to touch this with a 10-foot pole. What does that tell you, right? Every Law and Order episode I've seen where the cops don't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole says there's a reason they don't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole. And the reason works at the cop shop with them, right? And it's probably not the secretary. I'm just saying, right? So we've got a situation that nobody wants to talk about in multiple levels, and they're trying to limit it, and they're trying to use their tricks, their procedural tricks, their, we've got to give them time to do their investigation. We've got to, blah, blah, blah. And when it looks like everything's being covered up, giving them time seems to be like the wrong choice. Yeah. So thanks for watching, everybody. Check out CanadaPoly.com. Check out CanadaReport.co. Check out SpeakingMoistly.co. And I'll be recording with Kelly on Thursday. I called her. I didn't call her. I messaged her. So, yeah, I didn't call her. I don't think does anybody call anybody anymore? I don't think anybody calls anybody. I call my mom. That's who I call. You should call your mom. That's a good idea. Okay. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful